Many people know about the female pilots of World War II. The name Night Witches is well known. But in addition to the witches, other girls fought in the sky. For example, Lydia Litvyak, the most famous of the Soviet fighter pilots. Many of her photographs have been preserved. In those where she is not in uniform, it is impossible even to assume that a combat pilot is standing before you. A fragile blonde girl looks at the viewer with interest, sometimes even with a slight coquetry. Lydia Litvyak looks like a student, and she, in fact, was one. She died at an age when many of her peers were finishing their 4th year at an institute. Despite her age, she was a real fighter and shot down German aces over Stalingrad. Litvyak was born in 1921 into the family of a railway worker. By a twist of fate, her birthday, August 18th, coincided with the day of Soviet aviation. She adored the sky since childhood. At the age of 14, she had already entered a flying club, which terribly frightened her mother, but surprised no one else. By the age of 15, she had an independent flight to her credit. Soon she graduated from the School of Instructor Pilots in Kherson, and while still a high school student, was already teaching others to fly. By the summer of 1941, she had trained about 40 pilots. And then the war began. Recruiters looked at the girl asking to go to the front without any enthusiasm. Losses in aircraft were huge, and male pilots were standing in line to get into the war. However, Lydia was lucky. Marina Raskova played the main role in her fate. This woman was a living legend of Soviet aviation and possessed an energetic character. She used her connections to push through a project creating 3 women's air regiments. One of them consisted of the famous Night Witches on light bombers. Another regiment flew PE-2 dive bombers. Litvyak, however, joined the fighter regiment. To get into training, she added 100 extra flight hours to her record. During her studies, Lydia was distinguished by her rebellious character. She regularly ran away to dances, and once she even cut the fur off the tops of her issue flight boots to sew a collar for herself, for which, by Raskova's order, she had to sew it back. Many girls studying with Litvyak thought such an approach was frivolous. Because of her tendency to flirt and her desire to look spectacular, many even despised her. But the facts spoke for themselves. This girl piloted perfectly and was perhaps the best shot of them all. She had experience, obvious talent, and a great desire to fight. The first assignment was disappointing. The regiment defended Saratov deep in the rear. But in September 1942, 8 girls from the regiment were transferred to the front, to the very epicenter, Stalingrad. Lydia found her first success on September 13, 1942. This was her second combat mission and her first real aerial battle. She managed to knock out a Junkers 88 bomber. For a very young pilot, this was an absolutely convincing debut. On September 27th, a second victory over a Junkers was announced. Litvyak performed brilliantly. She was not afraid to close in and, despite the risk, fired at the enemy from a minimum distance. After that, no one said that Lydia was just a pretty blonde. In December, when the situation near Stalingrad improved, there were plans to return the female pilots to Saratov. Now, Lydia Litvyak and her partner Yekaterina Budanova practically rebelled. They wanted to stay in a combat regiment. Division Commander Boris Sidnev personally took part in their fate. It later turned out he had his own designs on Lydia, planning to add the bright girl to his list of romantic conquests, but he received a flat refusal. To Sidnev's credit, he did not seek revenge and transferred Litvyak and Budanova to the 296th Aviation Regiment. There, Lydia met Alexei Solomatin, a hero of the Soviet Union. They quickly became a couple. In February 1943, the fighting resumed with full force. On April 11th, Lydia, covering the infantry, shot down a Ju-87 dive bomber. She continued her hooligan ways. After missions, she would perform aerobatics over the airfield. The word "Mama" was carved into the dashboard of her fighter. and her cockpit was adorned with photos of roses and bouquets of wildflowers. At the same time, she carefully monitored her appearance, never forgetting cosmetics and even getting perms. In her, a tough, tenacious fighter pilot and a feminine nature were combined. On March 22nd, in a battle near Rostov, Lydia was wounded in the thigh. She managed to land her damaged plane and, a few days later, escaped from the hospital to return to her regiment. Soon, she received a short leave to Moscow. This was her moment of triumph. Newspapers wrote about her, and she was home with her family. Lydia even sewed herself a dress from captured German parachutes. This was the last time she saw her home. May 1943 was a brutal month. Her lover, Alexei Solomatin, crashed before her eyes. She had no time to grieve. The regiment was fighting heavy battles in the Donbass, suffering huge losses. In July, her best friend Yekaterina Budanova died. Lydia avenged her the same day by shooting down the Messerschmitt of German ace Helmut Schirra. On August 1, 1943, Lydia Litvyak's voice was heard over the radio for the last time. She was covering attack aircraft over the village of Marinovka. The battle was chaotic. Her wingman noticed Lydia's plane falling. Surprisingly, the Germans did not claim a single victory that day, and no one credited Litvyak to their account. The story had a difficult aftermath. Officially, Lydia did not die but went missing in action. An investigation began, and rumors spread that she had intentionally flown across the front line to surrender. Some even claimed to have seen her on German leaflets, though no such leaflets were ever produced. Her plane was not found, and the shadow of suspicion hung over her name for decades. During the Brezhnev era, a school teacher from the town of Krasny Luch organized a search group. Years later, it turned out that Lydia Litvyak had already been found and buried. Back in 1969, local boys had accidentally discovered the remains of a pilot. The body was buried in a mass grave near Marinovka as an unknown pilot. Only in 1988 was the wording in the documents changed from missing in action to killed in action. 2 years later, she was posthumously awarded the Star of the Hero of the Soviet Union. Thus ended her last battle, the battle for her honest name. The story of Lydia Litvyak is not just a chronicle of aerial victories, but a deeply personal drama of a woman who, in the flames of World War II, managed to preserve her individuality, tenderness, and dignity, proving to the world that behind a fragile appearance can hide a will capable of crushing the enemy's most formidable aces. Her journey from the White Lily of Stalingrad to her eternal guard in the Donetsk steppes reminds us of the price that generation paid for a clear sky. And today, her honest name finally shines as brightly as the gold star on her chest. If you found this story of courage and love against all odds interesting, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. There are many more stories ahead about heroes whose fates changed the course of history forever.